invitation and to be together, to think and to talk for the 2 days. You understood my name is Yves Grange. I'm from France. I'm working in AFPA. AFPA is a main organization in France for vocational training, and because we were created 65 years ago, mainly in the building trainings, mainly in construction trainings, and also for adults, as Ott said, and only for the medium qualifications. And we met since a long time in order to struggle together in Europe in order to organize VET. I'm going to talk about that, and what we have observed in Europe about what we call VET. And before I almost finished my career, I worked in different kind of VET in France, and each time also with European program, partnerships, and targets. So I'm going to explain that. I was thinking about to read my speech. I got one long speech and one short speech, but I think it will better and more elegant to explain what I wanted to say, because Ott told me that I have less than 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And I think it's better to be alive and to be labor market, and mainly what happened with VET in Europe, what I feel, what we are doing in Europe with Ott mainly and other friends and Panos, in order to understand what could be a good policy in Europe, because my speech won't be a technical speech. It will be an open speech about what we have to do, what we have done, and even if we are going to talk about VET in other countries in the world and other challenges in the world with VET, with economy, with society, my purpose is to think and to share with you some ideas in Europe, for Europe. First, the first idea is that for my organization, we are not doing education for adults, as all said. We are training adults. We are training them to understand that they could have a qualification without scholarships and academic curricula. Most of the adults, even in Europe, you know that 95 million of people in Europe are low qualified or without any qualifications. It's a huge number of people without qualification or with low qualification needs to learn something without facing their scholarship, mostly because they don't have any scholarships some of the time, and also because they failed. It exists another way of learning. It's learning by doing. It's work-based learning, as we say, and we organize all our qualification by doing. For electricity, they show how they understood electricity by making a plan, models, and so on. And for building, it's the same way. For cooking, it's the same way. You understood what I mean. So it's very important because I do think that the main problem today for vet in Europe is, what is vet? What do we think? What do we understand when we talk about vet? To give an example, you know that in Greece you have, I will speak about it better at the end, you have a very good organization called CDFOP in Thessaloniki, and it's for the trainers like me, trainers like vet training, vet organization. CDFOP is the Center of Research and Engineering of vet. And they began 2 years ago to focus on the definition of vet, because we understood that we don't talk about the same thing. For the moment, vocational and educational training, VET, is the acronym we have to design, to show common things, and CDFOP has made research about the definition, and the definition tries to make us understand that vet is different than what we think about education. Because most of us, we have done studies, and education is obvious, and when we talk about vet, we said, yeah, it's one kind of education, technical education, etc. But education means mainly initial education in our mind, and when we talk about vet, we say it's something like professional education, and something is already different about what we want to do with training linked with labor market. We know, all of us, that companies say all over Europe, we don't find skills. You know, the name skills was invented 25 years ago in our society, modern society, and it means, in French, it's compétence, and compétence means habilité en acte, which means ability in act. The word is kind of an ideological word. We are skilled, we are competent, we are, of course, intelligent, so every one of us say, okay, vet is skills. It's true, because today, the next week, we will have a skill week, skill vet week, and we see what happened in Europe between what we call vet linked with companies and labor market, and what we call professional education, mainly managed in the education direction. Something is difficult. We don't talk the same thing. Sometimes we talk about education, initial education, even if sometimes we talk about universities, students, even for the professions, but it's initial. What we try to do is not to turn our back about the education, the way we learn knowledges, the way we apply them. What we want is to make us understand that vet is an investment in human. Every human people can learn, so every people can have skills all over its life, our life, and we can learn all over our life. we know, we understand also that because we have done it for ourselves, for our kids, for our friends, that you have to learn earlier when you are young, because like that, you will have a degree, you could have find a good job, and so on, etc., etc. Good. But this meaning is something very difficult to apply for adults, mainly people without skills, without qualification, or low qualifications. So we have to fight against what is education as an academic scholarship, the way people that learn in their head because they are going to learn by heart some knowledges and to have exam and to be qualified and to find a good job. Most are young people all over the world and in Europe too. They are in competition to have the best degrees, to find the good, the best métier, the best professions, etc., etc., the best career. But it doesn't matter for more than half of the people that don't have any degrees after school or failed the beginning in university, and they do believe that they won't find a job because they were not good in school. If we want to win the idea that VET is an opportunity for everyone to understand themselves, to find what they want to do, and to train themselves in some skills in order to make them recognized by the professions, we have to be very careful about this idea. In Europe today, we have, I'm not going to make some ideas about dual system, but whatever where you want in Europe, dual system is said as the best system. We heard it in Austria, in Germany, in Switzerland, sometimes somewhere else, and something is misunderstood between us. To me, with my friends in Germany, in Austria and Switzerland, dual system means qualification in relationship with companies, labor market. It's internships. It's the way you can understand in companies, in labor market, what happened with what you know, what you can do, and what you want to do. So, for the moment, we can see that it's difficult in France to apply dual system because the French system is a public system, very well organized, etc., etc. And we have many employment service and vet service and vet market in Europe in order to make most of the people be able to learn and to have qualifications. And today we have to say something. This system on the paper failed. The French system is today 10% unemployed people. More than 10. Average in Europe is about the same. Last week, in a newspaper, Le Monde, we have seen on 15 years the unemployment rate in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, it's less than 5. So when we say our public system is worthy, we can say that nothing about unemployment because it doesn't decrease. So something happened with that. To my opinion, it's because in the French system and some other country, we believe in education because education is kind of the way you learn knowledges, and we forget that the labor market needs something else, and also other ways to train ourselves to be qualified. AFPA doesn't give national education diploma. We give title, it's a diploma from the Ministry of Labor. We have organized all our training system with situation of work. I don't want to develop that, of course, because it's not a subject, but I want to underline that in Europe something happened. When you are in a rich country, you can say something about education. And you can say something when you pay it, it's a dual system, for training. But when you are in countries with crisis, economical and social crisis, you cannot say that because companies cannot pay for training, and public service don't pay for that, not enough. So today we have 45 million people unemployed in Europe, 25 million list on the public unemployment services, 25, 10 million no pas inscrits, no in the list, and 10 million, a little bit more, with very low incomes, working a little bit. So it's 45 million without jobs. So we have to do something new. You know that. I want to say here, because Panos invite us and we talk a lot about that together in Europe, we need to do something new. Things are there. We know what happened. We have many studies about labor market, qualification, what we need in each country. CEDEFOP makes analyze in each country, show everything. Things are known. We can use them. But what we lack is today that we don't know what to do. We have a lack of vision and a lack of belief. The lack of vision is that VET doesn't have to be behind the educational system. We have to organize a VET system in Europe. When you see that for initial VET or continuous VET, you can see we don't have enough means, budgets. We have some words with politicians, etc. So we know that. We need to do a new policy for VET and to help organization, VET organization, and it has been begun 2 years ago with the VET Week, and the unemployment directions help us with some decision for a VVB or organization to support us about what I say. We have to use CEDEFOP. I don't develop that. Everybody knows that. We have to increase the budget of CEDEFOP to train trainers. We have also to explain to the countries of the East Europe that education doesn't mean by itself democracy. VET is not education just like that. VET is a struggle with companies, with work, with people for qualifications and the access in the world market. In the East Europe, you know that most of the people about 40 years old don't have work because the generation from the last system stay in work. And things are going to overlap very soon because we have to think a new system, not only a scientific system or an educational system, as we heard when we talk about VET in the Eastern country. So it's time for all Europe to organize work-based learning, new system, and also to make it clear with education, national education, that VET has to be governed, managed by itself, for itself, with more budget, etc. Example, and I will finish on that. Let's take the Erasmus program. Today, because since 4 years, we have seen that this program is handled by Direction of Education in Brussels. They don't want to give it to a part of it to employment direction because they don't want to hear about labor market companies and what I said previously. We are not able, for example, to speak about what are qualifications in the new jobs, new activity, new economy, because they only think about that in terms of education and initial education. So we have to, it's almost 3 billion for the next year, Erasmus. It's a lot of money, but it won't be enough. And most of this money, 80% of this money will go to university and schools. Education, not for that. We have begun to have Erasmus Plus. Like that, it's not Erasmus, it's not only students. It's also for every young people under 30 years old. So also the Erasmus is concerned with sectorial activity perspective in order to find the new way of skills and qualification in Europe. So I think it's open like that. I could answer to some commentaries and to open with us new thought if we want to continue in this willing speech I wanted to do for you and to make a kind of a synthesis of my career about VET in Europe. Thank you.